not proficient enough in Spanish, and there were a lot of Puerto Ricans in my group that spoke better, and so they said, hey, you're not going to go. I could have at that moment said, all right, well, that's my future. But instead, I imagined a future of me in the jungles of Panama and everything that came with that. So I doubled down in the present, started working on my Spanish, got proficient, tested again, and boom, I'm ready to go to Panama. Future events didn't quite have that in though, because about a week and a half before I was going, I was priming a carburetor on a vehicle. The carburetor backfired, gasoline flew, lit me on fire, and I was in the hospital. Well, hello, Steve.
Well, hello, Steve.
This is the Steve and Steve Show. Sure glad you've tuned in today. We've got another good one. I should just do a flip on you, but I'm not ready to do that yet. So we talked about doing something this time, talking about where you are in the time stratagem, meaning future, present, past. And that so many people live in the future or the past, and what is the past, the present, and the future in terms of defining it. So let me just ask you that. For you, what's the future? What does it mean?
Well, it's interesting, right? Like the last one of the previous videos that we recorded. Not only did I throw you off, but you threw me off.
Good.
Right?
We're going to time travel
today. And I have to say, I'm going to really try to project to be loud, but I don't know if I can be as loud as your shirt.
Oh, the shirt. That's kind of a nice shirt, isn't it? This is, we're hopefully wherever you are, it's kind of springy out there. So this is kind of a spring shirt. We're thinking of vacations, you know?
So let's talk about the future as you asked. So I think the future is what I conceive in my mind as what's coming, tomorrow and the days after.
Years and things. Okay. Yep. What's the past?
The past is what I have experienced. It's in the back. It's basically yesterday or this morning. It's history.
Okay. What is the present then?
That's what you get at Christmas.
Ah, that's funny. I didn't think that was funny. Great. That's what you get at Christmas for your birthday.
So one of the goals of these videos is to see who can throw the other person off.
Oh, is that where we're going?
I think we're going to start doing that.
All right. Well, so I'm going to say what the present is. The present is where we live, right? That's where we live. But the now. But the point of this time machine conversation we're having right now is that so many of us, me included, I won't speak for you, but I'm betting you this is you and it also, so I will speak for you. The present is actually not what's happening in this moment, but oftentimes what I'm imagining is going to happen in the future. So I'll take some future event and I'll bring it to the present and it manifests itself as worry, concern, sometimes terror. And guess what? It's no longer in the future. So let me give you a tangible example of it. There's some kind of a sickness happening worldwide.
Right.
And it's here now in my present. And I am terrified by it. And I actually make actions in my present that are based on potential future events.
Right. But not to just focus on the negative. Right? I think your camera just turned off.
Oh, well, we'll stay here then. You got a camera on you, so we'll stay on this side here.
I don't want to write. It can be your hopes, your dreams, right? So it doesn't have to be the fear of something bad going to happen, although that's part of it. But the concept is we're thinking about stuff that hasn't happened yet, and we're pulling it in because we're pulling it into our now.
Right. So that's what I was trying to get to is kind of a way of thinking in your mind by being in the present and making sure that if you're thinking about something in the future, that whatever it is you're thinking about is going to color your present. And the same thing goes for the past. You may have good or bad, in fact, I know you have, we all have, good and bad things that have happened to us in the past. If we bring those memories of the bad into the present, we actually begin to live what is history in the present, and it affects everything we do, which then affects the future. If we bring into the present things that we're terrified of in the future, we begin to live that. And as you said, vice versa. If we can then, we actually, in this time machine, are able to design our present by what we remember and what we imagine about the future. And that's how we start to, not by some magic, manifest our present, but it's kind of like, I have the analogy of a red Volkswagen, right? If I'm driving a red Volkswagen and I'm really focused on this brand new red Volkswagen that I bought, inevitably I start to see more and more red Volkswagens on the street. Is that because there are more red Volkswagens than before I had the red Volkswagen? Mm-hmm. No, it's because my mind is focused on the red Volkswagen, and so I've opened up to see, my antennas are there to see the red Volkswagen. So that same concept. So
it's your awareness.
Awareness, absolutely.
Right.
And if you have an awareness of a future that is ugly.
Well, I think not necessarily awareness of the future, right? It's your awareness of where your mind is. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the future and either worried or hopeful for the future? Or are you thinking about your past, pondering your past, living your past? You know, so a lot of times our fears and worries and anxieties come from either the future, what could potentially go bad, or revisiting bad past events. And instead of enjoying the future, or instead of enjoying currently what we're working on right now, in the present, then that can have an effect on not only your feelings and your thoughts right now, but also could have an effect on your future. Right, because it's what's going on right now, and most of us have heard. Well, you know, if you have a friend you're speaking to a friend, you need to be a listener and you need to be present for them, right? And that's being there in the now and being an active listener, right? So that's that present, like, and when you're in that present mode, you're there, right? There's more opportunities to be in a joyful and enjoy what's going on right now, because that's where you're at, versus all the stuff that may be happening. So even if an event happened maybe an hour ago or last night, that bad event could be ruining what's going on right now.
Right. So it becomes a distraction to the present, and we make our decisions in the present, correct?
Right.
We make those all in the present. There, I don't know. So I got a quick little story.
It's funny you said distraction in your phone rang.
My phone rang just right then. I've got a quick little story that I'd like to tell, kind of about what I was imagining in the future and actually became manifested in my present, which at any time could have changed, and it had a big effect on me. Do you mind if I tell a quick story?
Yep.
It'll be quick. So this was when I was back in the military, and I was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we were active in the country of Panama, our group, active in the country of Panama, and I had an opportunity to go to Panama for what my job was. And so I was like, oh, you know what? I'm all about it. I'm going to go anything I could do to get out of garrison and get down to, a Central American country and all the cool things that would happen from that. Well, I was a Spanish linguist. I tested out, and boom, all of a sudden my dream was like, oh, this isn't going to happen, because I was not proficient enough in Spanish, and there were a lot of Puerto Ricans in my group that spoke better, and so they said, hey, you're not going to go. I could have at that moment said, all right, well, that's my future. But instead, I imagined a future of me in the jungles of Panama and everything that came with that. So I doubled down in the present, started working on my Spanish, got proficient, tested again, and boom, I'm ready to go to Panama. Future events didn't quite have that in though, because about a week and a half before I was going, I was priming a carburetor on a vehicle. The carburetor backfired, gasoline flew, lit me on fire, and I was in the hospital.
Wow.
And 3rd degree burns, and I'm back to 6 days in the hospital, and my commander saying, you're not going to Panama. I could have at that moment said, this is my present, and the imagination that I had in Panama is a mirage, and I need to go and imagine something else. But I didn't. I imagined the jungles of Panama, kind of like this shirt right here, and that I was going to be there. And I told my commander, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do this. So in the present, I worked consistently of bringing the image of Panama into my present. Quick story, end of the story. 2 months later, I was completely healed, and I had orders to go back and lead a team into Panama, and I spent it there. And guess what? I ended up meeting my wife of 31 years and 5 kids. So the kind of me keeping that picture of Panama in my present was a huge, Steve, motivator for me to continue to get to where what manifested out of that is 5 children, incredible stuff.
Right. So that's interesting, because one of the things that I teach is taking 100% responsibility for yourself.
Amen.
Right. And so that there's a formula with that practice, and that's event plus
Circumstances or?
reaction
Okay.
equals outcome.
Event plus reaction equals outcome.
Right.
Okay.
So the event happened. You had an accident with the carburetor, and it burned you.
Right.
So that event happened, and your reaction to that event, I'm sure at that time you were, during that moment, I'm sure you probably didn't look all that professional when your arm was on fire.
No, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy.
But it basically put you in a position where you could have, your reaction for the whole thing of having an issue with your arm is that you could have pondered on that, dwelled on that, looked at your future as a very negative,
Scarred.
right?
Oh dear, what am I going to do now?
Yep. So, but you didn't. You looked for hope and a bright future, and pulled those images and visualizations that you had for this, how grand it was going to be, pulled that into your present, focused on what you could do now in the present, and that was imagine that. So that's interesting. But when you were going, and so that's a fantastic story, and how you were able to overcome a challenge there. But when you made that decision that you were going to go to Panama, and you didn't, I remember you saying that there was the testing, and you had to get certified,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
But when you were testing, were you thinking about the past when you were studying for that test?
I was thinking about the past in the sense of, oh, I've done this. I studied hard for Spanish back then, so I got this.
So you used the past to
did
know
bring
that
the
you knew
past.
what you needed
Yes.
to do. But when you were actually in the present of studying, you were so focused that you were able to make the future of what you wanted to happen.
You're
because
right.
You
You're
just
right.
focused on there versus pondering on, if I'm not going to pass. I'm not going to,
Yeah, so you're right. There's an interesting dynamic that I think you're talking about. So when I was taking the test, I had behind me all of the classes that I took, the studying that I did, that actually weakened me a bit, because I brought those in, and probably meant that I didn't study as hard for the test right then, because I assumed that all my past got me to where I was, and I was going to pass this. Once I didn't pass, now I'm in this present, my future had to be, no, it's not just that I can't do that. I was wrong here, and oh dear, I really wasn't this, but it was, all right, I'm going to pull in, again, the jungle, I'm going to pull that in to make me study to get to the point where I could pass the test and get
Yeah.
there. So we're really talking. I mean, truly, I started this with a time machine. This is really a
Yeah, it's
time
interesting,
machine,
right? So you can use your past to help you get forward, but you also could use your past to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
And you can also do this for the future. You can use the future, what you vision for the future, for the hope and the dreams and the goals to make that come true for the present. But also, if you're thinking about the future in a negative way of, what's the economy going to do? How if I do lose my job? Instead of focusing on the present, you're pulling in fears that don't even matter yet.
Fantasies.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's a good topic. But you brought up a whole slew of topics that we could dig deep and go probably for a couple more hours. But I think it's interesting. I think we need to have you guys really think about over the next after this video is over. Think about where you're at right now. Are you thinking about the future? How are you thinking about the future? Is it a positive thought? Is it a negative thought? And then what about when you think about the past? Are you thinking about a negative thought or a positive thought? And a lot of times when we're in anxiety and fear, we're pulling in negative events that may have not happened yet or may have happened. There's nothing you could do about it.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. And so, and you got, looking at the past, again, I like this idea of we're in a time machine. Dress it up however you want your time machine. If you look at the past, that's a ton of data that's already happened. So don't think that, that's the only data I can pull from. Pull from things that are going to enhance your present.
Yeah.
And in the future, that stuff hasn't happened yet. So it's really fantasy. Imagine things that could happen and bring those into the present. And then you've got in your time machine this double power of finding the red Volkswagens that are out there.
Fantastic topics.
Cool.
Thank you for watching us tonight. I hope you get a lot of nuggets out. We did give you a homework assignment. You weren't paying attention. It was to think about where you're at. Become aware of your feelings and thoughts, and are you thinking about the future or the past, or are you being present?
And in your present, subscribe, right?
That's exactly the words I was going to say.
Subscribe.
So hit the button to subscribe, like, share, help us grow this community of viewers, of smart people that are watching the Steve and Steve
You guys
show.
are smart. You really are smart.
Yeah. All right. Since we do have glasses today, we can do our signature.
I think we're going to start drinking alcohol during these as well. We did one.
We should do before maybe our topics will be more interesting. So, all right. Till next time. Enjoy.
Cheers. Nasty.